Hey guys, welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel, joined here by Gage Sheets, top right and bottom, Mr. Keenan Womack. Welcome back to the channel, gentlemen.
What's up, baby? How we doing?
We're in here. We're doing that thing. We got halfway through the schedule. We talked about Georgia all week, so we're gonna pivot back, go over the first 6 games for Texas. It's been a fun 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or whatever with the bye week, but yeah, a lot of fun. So why not recap it? Ranked number 1 in the nation, unbeaten. No blemishes so far, halfway through. First question for you guys. As you look at the first 6 games, just we'll kind of go individual one by one, but which game for you was personally the most fun? I mean, we're 6-0. We've dominated almost every game. We're crushing the spread, save Mississippi State. But, yeah, what are your thoughts as far as the most fun that you've had watching Texas football in the first half?
I would say the most fun, obviously, was last weekend. I had the most fun last weekend. I had the most fun in Dallas. It was good giving OU what they kind of deserve after the disappointment of last year. So that was by far the most fun I've had. But I think just like it's been nice. I know the schedule is going to get a little rougher, but it's been nice to kind of have a little stress-free and not like this crazy chaotic football that we've been so used to over the last 15 years of like just every weekend is hard. Doesn't matter who you play. Every weekend is you never know what's going to happen with this team. So I think that's probably been the most enjoyable part of the team this year so far.
Keenan, what did we say the first time you were on the channel?
Have to beat Oklahoma. Have to beat them.
Yeah.
Have to beat them. And they did that.
Yeah.
And they did it easily. They went in there and they belt to ass just the whole game. That was fantastic. I was in Dallas for that one. That was a lot of fun. I was there. Going to be at Georgia this week too, so really looking forward to that. But I would say OU for sure, but Michigan was nice too because everybody was like, that's their first big test. They're a top 4 team. Everybody wanted to jump on them so bad and be like, he couldn't even beat Michigan. Like everybody wanted to do that so bad, and they just left no doubt on the field. It could have been worse. It could have been 45-7. It could have been 45-3. It could have been a complete blowout, but they kind of held back a little bit, I think, in that game from a play calling perspective. I don't think they wanted to empty the sink against Michigan because they knew that team couldn't move the ball. Michigan reminds me a lot of Oklahoma. I think they have similar rosters and that they have pretty solid defenses and just very inept offenses. Now, part of that, of course, is due to OU's losing 5 receivers, but I don't think having those receivers would have made that much more competitive. I still think Texas wins that game something like 34-17, even if OU has all their receivers. I just think Texas is a much better roster, and they're a program that's in a much better place right now.
No doubt, man. There's definitely a little bit of a talent difference between the two, which is very nice to see. Outmatched on the trenches on both sides. Obviously with the wide receiver injuries, you have a little tiny bit of pity for them, but at the same time, screw them, right? No, I'm just kidding. They wouldn't feel bad for us if Shoe was on the other foot. They've still got wide receivers on the roster. Get it done with who you have, but with that offensive line, with Michael Hawkins Jr., and most importantly, that scheme, I don't care what receivers, put prime Megatron out there. I don't think it would have mattered too much. Who's going to get him the ball? Who's going to protect for the guy trying to get him the ball? But, obviously last weekend was a blast. Glad we were all there and got to see that one. And for me, though, it is Michigan. Because of how hot Quinn started that game, because of the same things you mentioned, Keenan, a lot of just negativity as far as people waiting for us to fail in that one so that they could laugh and just say, same old Texas. And, couldn't even get to the SEC schedule without a loss yet, and it's just like, same thing. You can't be Michigan. How are you going to do in the SEC, this and that? And to see them pull the reins in and just completely just like, hey, we're going to be as base as possible in the second half. and it's still good enough to beat you guys by 3 scores. And it would have been 4 scores, but you scored with a garbage time touchdown. So going into the big house, very therapeutic to watch Texas take it to them. Hey, what's up, brother Matt? Appreciate you being here. What about you, Gage? Keenan, are y'all little Debbie Christmas tree cake guys?
Of course, dude. Who doesn't like that?
Yeah, I love little
doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't comment. Then I'm gonna get in trouble. My guys are gonna leave me, bounce on me. I did see they have the little Debbie's, like the Christmas tree donuts.
Yeah,
I saw that. I saw them in the last 2 days or something. Good evening, Matt T-Sipper. I appreciate you being here.
That's a crazy comment.
He's always having fun over here. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Appreciate all you guys watching, checking out Keenan, checking out Gage. Go like this video, show some love. Going to continue to get into this first half a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Keenan, going into the Colorado State game, be honest with me, man. They had a lot of returning offensive, firepower. I won't say firepower with Colorado State, but talent from the last year's team. They, I expected a lot better fight out of Colorado State, but Texas jumped on them early. Were you pretty impressed with what you saw with Texas that day, or is that kind of what you expected?
Well, what I was impressed with the play by the secondary, right? I think the secondary is vastly improved over last year's, and I think that's one of the staples of this team is their secondary is really good. Colorado State had a preseason All-American at wide receiver in Torrey Horton, like an NFL guy. Like that dude will play on Sundays. Might be a second rounder this year, but I don't know. I don't know. He may have gotten injured or something, but super talented kid. Yeah. So they shut him down. Like he didn't do anything. I think he had less than 50 yards or around 50 yards in that game. I don't have the stats in front of me, but that was sort of a statement game right off the bat. It was like, no, we're gonna kill everybody we play type mentality on the defensive end. I was just so impressed with the defense in that game, man. I mean, because Braden Fowler-Nicolosi, the quarterback for Colorado State, like he was inconsistent last year, but he had some games where he went for 300 yards. He had some games where he threw multiple touchdowns, and they didn't let him breathe. He had no time to throw the ball. Those receivers were not getting separation in the pass game at all. And it was just a really, really impressive outing, and just kind of a statement to start the season. Like, yeah, we're ready for the SEC. Like, obviously, Colorado State's not an SEC team; they're not SEC level of play, but they went out there and just beat that ass, man.
Yeah, Gage kind of talked about earlier. That seems like a game in the past where you look at Wyoming. Last year, where it's 10-10 going to the fourth. That team kind of, Wyoming might be a little bit more better in the trenches that last year with that team than this year's Colorado State team. But I mean, just a game like that Texas might have made a little bit closer than it probably should have been. Definitely good to see them hop on them early. Gage, we watched that game together from DK or at DKR. What were your main takeaways from that one?
Yeah, I think the secondary was probably the most impressive part. I'm gonna, kind of hop on that train. Because that was our concern going into the season was our secondary and how are they going to hold up. And it was even concern going into the Colorado State game because they had Torrey Horton and they had weapons, and to be able to see them kind of like stick together as a secondary and not give up big plays that they're so accustomed to giving up. That was huge, man. And yeah, so I think that was the first time and I know it's Colorado State, and I know all the BS going on, all about how weak of a schedule we played so far. But I'll say this: that was the first moment going in after that game was I was like, okay, this team is for real. This is the real team. This is the real deal. This isn't like the past years where we thought we had a good team and we ended up not. No, this team, they were supposed to dominate. And they didn't just dominate; they obliterated their opponent. And Colorado State, they suffocated them defensively. They had no chance to do anything the entire game. And I think that's when I first realized in that Colorado State game was my big takeaway. When I walked out of DKR, I was like, "This team is real. This is the one." So I think that was the first time I really realized it.
Matt T. Swiffer, enjoy the Uncle Lou live stream. Thank you for stopping by, my guy. Hello, Ingrid. Yeah, dude, I remember you and I talking about just the speed of the defense, and it just so much faster. Not just how fast the guys are. Guys are playing fast. It doesn't look like they're thinking a lot. They know and trust what they're doing, where they're supposed to be, and whatever scheme or concept. And so, yeah, definitely a very, very impressive opening, win for Texas. I think the line came out 35.5, might have closed 36.5. I was telling everybody I thought Colorado would get inside that number kind of easily.
Because that's what we're so used. That's what we're so accustomed to seeing over the past few years. Is like, yeah, it's like they should be a 35-point favorite talent wise on the paper, and then they can't get it done. And that was like the first time I was like, okay, maybe this is different. Maybe this is different. This feels different.
Absolutely.
This team doesn't play with its food. You know what I mean? Like that was a big theme. Even last year with the best team they had in 15 years.
Yep.
They screwed around with Houston, right? They screwed around with TCU. They screwed around with teams that they were significantly better than, right?
Yeah.
And I don't see that with this team. There's a level of focus that I haven't seen with the Texas program since the 09 team. I'm not saying this team is going to win a national title, but I'm saying they're on track to. The way they're playing, they don't mess around with people. They like go out and they execute and they get things done off the bat. I was a student from 2012 to 2016. Well, okay, a couple extra years on the back end, but who's counting? But it was a really, really tough time to be a football fan at UT as a student because I remember the team was just so bad that I started boycotting games. And by that, I mean I would drink too much and leave at the half. But that was my way of boycotting games. I wouldn't stay for the full thing because it was, Charlie Strong era and it was rough. And it's just amazing to see this team, this focused, this talented, recruiting the way they're recruiting and just like beating the crap out of people, man. It's just like really refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stark says we're the standard, right? Like we are the standard week in and week out. And you see that with this team and you saw it in that Colorado State game. It's like, we're the standard. They're not the standard. We're not going out there to beat the standard of Colorado State. We're out there to beat our standards and meet our standards. And you can see that. And a lot of times I feel like in the past, we've kind of been burnt by that talk. And we've been like, hype.
Yeah, you can. And you can say it all you want. It's one thing to go do it. Tom Herman, I mean, they had damn shirts that had 1-0 on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get out there and get busted by Maryland. And so, I mean,
it's crazy.
That game, dude. So that was the first time I met my wife's family. I had just started dating my wife, and that was the Maryland game on the road. So the one where they played in Maryland, or they played that in DC.
It was in DC. Yeah, they played.
Yeah, so that was the first time I met my wife's family, and I had to keep leaving the room to just be like, just be so mad. Yeah. I was like not holding it together well, and luckily they understand now and they're cool about it. But yeah, it was tough times, dude, because you talk about that 2018 team. I thought that after beating Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, I thought Texas was like on the way to winning a natty. I was like, Tom Herman's the guy. This is the squad. Ellinger's going to win a natty. Like that's what I thought for sure. I was very confident. I thought they were going to beat LSU the next year. I went to that game, dropped way too much money to go, and they lost that game too. And it's just nice to see them get up for these big games, but also not play to their competition. I think that's so important that they're not doing it.
No, absolutely, guys. Y'all spot on there. It's just very refreshing. It's great. They're doing what they're supposed to do. You go out there, you take care of a lesser opponent, you handle them. Most of our second halves, the main concern has been to stay healthy. Get some young guys reps, stay healthy, and get ready for the next one. Don't show a lot of don't show any future opponents more than you have to, and it's such a great spot to be in. What happened?
Cleveland just walked it off.
No way, dude. That's crazy, man. I thought that game was
run bomb, David Fry.
Oh, David Fry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the show. I just thought I would.
Oh, no.
That nugget. That was awesome, dude. That got me so fired up. That was sick.
Most of the country is probably cheering on the old Indians.
I'm
not doing it. Yeah. India. I'm not doing it.
Indians, baby. Call them whatever you want, brother.
Not doing it. I love Major League. It's my favorite sports movie, and that
is a great movie.
God, man, sports today, crazy world. But yeah, I mean, they're doing what they're supposed to do. We've talked a little about the Michigan game. Obviously, that was an opponent that's far outmatched. They had no type of passing game, very one-dimensional, and not even maybe call them half-dimensional. They couldn't pick up positive yards there on half the run attempts in that first half. And so a game like that, I mean, another game where it's very satisfying, refreshing, whatever you want to use. In the second half, man, I mean, literally, they packed it in completely, like we referenced earlier. They're running the ball here or there. They don't have to throw it all. Quinn threw for 200 plus in the first half. And then I don't even think he threw for like 70 or 80 in the second half because you just
Yeah.
don't have to. And we're talking about going on the road and doing that against not just like, a Power 5, Power 4 conference, like the defending national champions who, yes, it's not the same exact team, but yes, have been very, very, very good on defense for, several years. But hey, shout out Connor Stallions, right?
Shout out Connor Stallions, legend. Michigan legend. You know what's funny about that Connor Stallions thing? Not to derail the show again, but I don't think they needed him. They were like just overpowering everybody. They were running the ball. They ran like 5 plays on offense. You know what I mean?
It's so bad in that game. It was like you're all nervous, and I think we have a negative play on, or maybe we have a false start penalty. Either on first or second down. I think it was second down.
Cam.
It was Cam. Yep.
Yeah.
And so we have a 3rd and 13, and it's just like, okay,
Quinn
here
makes
we go.
Great throw on 3rd down.
Well, dang, Gage. Yeah, where he hits Isaiah Bond down the right sideline. And then I was
like, uh-oh, here we go.
And then all of a sudden, you can see the way that the sideline reacted. Like, it just felt like they needed one play to go their way. And then they took a breath, and they beat that tail. And if it wasn't for a borderline holding call, there on the touchdown pass from Quinn to DeAndre Moore, it would have been worse. Because I think we ended up, what did we miss a field goal on that drive? Is that when Burt missed?
Yeah, believe so.
And so
it was a 0 points drive. I remember that.
Yeah, he pushed it right. And so, how do I think Sam? This is an interesting question. I definitely want to hear your opinion, Keenan. I don't know if Sark would have ever had a Sam Ehlinger playing quarterback, but if he, if it was Sam was the guy when Sark got here, I mean, I think he would quickly improve the passing game that Sam had. Obviously, we don't really have much doubt in the legs.
I mean, I think part of the thing with Sark is he's such a good receiver recruiter, right? Like, they have not had problems with receivers. So, like, Ehlinger had some good receivers, but he didn't have guys as good as Adonai Mitchell. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that would have helped quite a bit. Obviously, he probably wouldn't have ran him quite as much as Herman did. Herman was like, you're the halfback, dude. You're running the ball. Like, Ehlinger had that dog in him, dude. I don't care what anybody says. That guy was a freaking warrior out there. He took so much punishment running the ball for that team. I'm sure he would have done great. But I think Ewers is, like, tailor-made for his offense.
Yeah. That's the thing. Sam as a passer, he had room to grow, and Sark, that's a pretty good couple or a pretty good marriage right there. If those two were to ever link up or would have linked up, I feel so bad for Sam for those same reasons, man. A little bit of a battering ram at the quarterback position, and needed a little bit better O-line play. But yeah, I mean, with the receivers we have now and with Sam Ehlinger, he threw a pretty dang good deep ball. I think he'd have a lot of fun in that offense for sure.
Yeah, throw it to Worthy. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it isn't really a question. Like, it is a question about Sam, but it's a question about the team. Like, obviously, we know Sark knows how to build a program, and I don't think that the program was built well enough around Sam. So I think the program around Sam under Sark would have been built so much better that it would have automatically made him a better player.
Yeah. Naturally, absolutely.
Totally fair.
Definitely fair. But yeah, they dominate Michigan to ground. They come home. UTSA was up on Texas, 17-7 2 years ago, and they came to Austin. And so there's a little part of me in this game that's like, yeah, Texas is pretty dang good. But hey, I still get nervous. I think Fancy, I was on with her on her podcast earlier. She called it UTSD, and it's still a real thing for me. I still think about some of those dark times. And so, yeah, I mean, UTSA, obviously this is when Quinn goes down, right?
Yeah. No, I thought you were talking against Bama. Oh, you're talking about 2 years ago.
This year.
I mean, this year. This year.
Sorry. I took you all over the place. On that one. But yeah, so UTSA, Quinn goes down. We have a bad run fit in the first half, and playing the 5-man box, they take advantage of us to the left side or to the boundary side, and with like a 75-yard touchdown. I don't know if it's a long touchdown. Felt like that. In that moment, I was kind of just like, this is how it goes for Texas. We get a big win over a top 10 Michigan team. We come home, our quarterback gets hurt, some squirrely run play happens with UTSA. All of a sudden, we got a one-score game. I think was it in the second quarter? Maybe it was a one-score game early in the second quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, are you guys as dorky as me? Were y'all panicking at all in that moment? What were your thoughts when Quinn kind of went down there?
I think
You text
I
me a
don't.
few.
Yeah, I was upset with the way I felt like they were slow as a team coming into that game and kind of like did have a little bit of a hangover. But I think that like at the end of the day, the culture is so strong and like you had Arch come in and he made a couple big plays. And once I saw like Arch could make the big plays, even though he had drives that he struggled in, and that for like kind of frustrating drives. He would go 3 and out like 3 times in a row, and then he had made a couple mistakes, but he made those like big plays. I was like, okay, that you could see the talent gap was pretty wide between the two, like as it always usually is. But you could see that the defense was flying around, so I wasn't too nervous they were going to beat us. But obviously, the narrative around UTSA keeping it a close game is not one you want to deal with. So I was a little nervous that UTSA was going to keep it close there for a second. But yeah, once Arch made a couple of those big plays, I was like, that they're not going to be able to keep up with us. So
I wasn't so much worried about that game. I mean, when he went down, I was curious about how they would handle the next few weeks, right? I was like, as long as he's back for OU, like Texas isn't going to lose to any of these teams they're playing early on, right? They're
Right.
just not going to lose to Mississippi State, even with Arch playing. Certainly not going to lose to Louisiana Monroe. Although, watch out for the Warhawks; they are 5-1.
Playing good football.
They're playing really good football. They really only got. I mean, they're only lost to Texas. So, I think that game was much more of a culture game. Like your guy goes down, and you still go out there and you're 56-7, something like that.
yeah,
I think that's super important that they were able to rally around Arch and not even saying Arch going forward. Like if Ewers gets injured again, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like just from a bouncing back standpoint emotionally, because that could have been a game where different situation completely. But when I was on the Texas basketball beat and the Chris Beard thing went down, they had a game that night and they played Rice. And they nearly lost to Rice. Rice took them to overtime. Quincy Olivari had 32 points. It was a 36 points, something like that. So like you could have had a situation like that where UTSA makes it a game because your team's rattled. Your team is shelled from this thing happening. But that's not what happened. They rallied around Arch. They played good defense. They ran the ball. They did what they needed to do, and they dominated this game, even without their like leader, the heart and soul of that offense. So I think it was a culture game for them to bounce back after Ewers getting injured.
Yeah, and it's like you never really expect them or think that they'll lose that game, but you worry about the next couple of weeks, just as you said. You worry like, is this a couple week thing, or is this going to be a long term thing? And I think Gage and I went back and forth on this for like 72 hours.
yeah.
I think at one point I was saying it'll be a short injury or a short term injury. He said long, and then the next day I'm saying long term. He's saying short term.
Yeah,
And
I think
just
we did the opposite. Like I was like, at first I was like, oh, it's all over, we're screwed, and he was like, no, we're gonna be fine. I think it like kind of shifted a little bit, and I was like, I feel better about it. I feel better, and then obviously we had great news come out that following week, so I think we both calmed down a little bit.
Yeah, and you, I mean, you have trust in Arch because you've seen Arch spin it, and you know the pedigree, and he doesn't have the experience that 3 has, and that's a big thing. This team seems to have a national championship ceiling, and after the Michigan win, I think a lot of minds went there, and so it's like, yeah, man, you really want 3 to be a part of it, and to have reps, because when he does have a bit of a layoff at times, he does on occasion come off a little bit shaky. We saw that a little bit last week, but then Arch makes his first start. ULM comes to town. A lot of people getting in there to watch Arch Manning. You know, there's a lot of time that fourth game of the season, playing against whatever small school. You know, you see a couple sections up at DKR, a little bit empty. It's still pretty dang hot there mid-September. No, not against ULM, man. People are packed, and you're watching a good Texas team. But at the same time, I think, you know, there are a ton of people that get excited to see Arch. I mean, just judging by the crowd's reaction over the few times we've seen him get in there, man. But so, yeah, like you said, I mean, if you looked at ULM, at the time they were only 2-0, I believe. But pretty decent football team over there for ULM. Yeah. Turned Arch over a couple of times. One of his throws, the first one, I think, was a pretty ugly pass there from Arch Manning, pretty gross decision. But hey, they figured things out. Defense played really, really well. We kept them out of the end zone, correct?
Yeah, it's 51-3.
51-3. Correct. Okay. So, yeah, another good win for Texas. What were your thoughts on Arch Manning's first start?
I mean, I thought it was weird, not weird, but interesting that they weren't giving him easier throws. Like they bombed it downfield like 9 times in that game. I think he had a 50% completion rate, something around there, maybe a little over 50%. But I was surprised at the lack of easy throws, the tunnel screens, the slants, just the quick get the ball out and go type of plays. It looked like they were really pushing him. They're like, "What does he got? Let's just see." Let's just throw him out there and like throw him to the Lions. And like, it's not throwing him to the Lions because you're playing Louisiana Monroe, but they're putting him in difficult passing situations. They're making him make hard throws. And I think that was probably by design. It's like, why not try it against this team that we know we're going to beat? Let's experiment a little bit. Let's see what the kid's got. He had a few beautiful throws downfield. The one to Silas Bolden that I think got called incomplete, which should not have been called incomplete.
Yeah, I don't think it should have.
It was a freaking catch. It was one of those things where they were just kind of testing him. I felt like, and did he have some moments where he looked like a first year guy in his first start? Absolutely, he did. He had a couple picks. He had some incompletions. He overthrew some guys, but get the win. He gets experience, and he looked so much better in his next start. Like I think that start really was helpful for him. That they were pushing him and making him make those difficult throws.
Yeah, he definitely looked pretty dang good there, even in the second half of that game. But yeah, man, none of the quick hitting RPOs, none of the swings to the backs, like those easy passes that kind of get Quinn going. That Sark likes to, which I mean, they still work, man. He's still putting really good athletes in space a lot of the times.
Yeah.
But you didn't really see that, man. It seems like we were trying to push the envelope, force the ball downfield a little bit. What about you, Brother Gage? What did you think about Arch?
I thought it was exciting. I thought it was pretty clear that it was his first collegiate start. I think that as much as they were difficult passing situations and he was throwing downfield, I felt like it was a lot of one read situations. Like, hey, don't try too hard. This is your guy on this play, and if he's not open, run. And I also think that sometimes Arch forced the ball because of that. I don't think that he gave him a lot of RPOs, if any RPOs. I don't recall that I can think he threw any RPOs like he does with Quinn. And I think that's more of like a decision-making thing. Like I think it just comes with time and experience. And it's those RPOs, they're so quick, man. You have to be able to make a decision immediately. And I just don't think that Sark wanted him to put him in a position of like having to make quick decisions and then regret those quick decisions and be like, oh man, it was more of like, hey, this guy's going to run a deep route and Sark's creative. So he's going to have other guys, kind of be a distraction. And if that guy's open, throw it to him, or throw it to him if he's not open, in this case with Arch the first game, or kind of take off and use your wheels because he's such an athlete. So, I'm just impressed on Arch and his growth. And I think just his athletic ability is it's so glaring, man. It's just like, this dude's a freak. He's a freak. It's kind of wild to watch. Like, just to be like that, I can't believe how fast he is. Like he's even better watching him athletically than we thought before. And we already thought he was a freak athlete. And then when you watch him live game and you're like, dude, this guy, give him some time and he's going to be unreal. So I thought it was a good first start, but it was definitely a first start.
Talking about us cheating, Dave, you gotta let me know what you're talking about there. Dave
Meyer,
Sooner Radio, good guy, great guy. But I feel like he's talking. feel like he's probably talking in jest there. But at the same time, Dave, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, baby, and that's a 34-3 beatdown. But I real feel bad I did not get to see Dave up at the Cotton Bowl. I definitely was trying to. Keenan, all of you guys, it was madness.
It was crazy. It was so packed, man. It was hot.
It's hot. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we got Keenan for about another 15 minutes here, so we're going to go on to Mississippi State. Arch looked a lot better now at the same time. We made that game a little more interesting than we should have. A couple of Jaden Blue fumbles, a drop touchdown from Jonte Cook. But yeah, Arch was spinning that thing in that game. He looked really, really comfortable.
Yeah, Arch looked like the guy that's going to be the number one pick in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he looked like. as a second start for him, he was just amazing. He was, if not for that drop touchdown by Jonte Cook, I mean, it just would have been. I think it would have been a much bigger blowout. I feel like that offense would have gotten going more. The fumbles.
God, I love this
awesome.
guy.
That rules. It was one of those things where I think with his first couple of, well, not his start, I guess, his game against UTSA, he didn't look as comfortable, and he's holding on to the ball too long. That's the thing I noticed in those first two. The second half or whatever, the first game and his first start, holding on to the ball too long. He looked a lot more comfortable. He was also comfortable taking shots while throwing the ball. Like on one of that touchdown to DeAndre Moore, he got lit up, dude. He got destroyed, stood in the pocket, took it like a man, completed the pass. Like the man just has football bloodlines. And like you can tell that without reading the Manning on the back of his jersey. Like the dude was born to quarterback. He was born to quarterback at the University of Texas. Like, it's so exciting that he's in the wings. Usually when you have a guy as good as Quinn Ewers, you're like, what are we going to do next year? How is this team going to respond next year? And it's like, I think they're pretty good. I think they're going to be pretty good with Arch next year. So really exciting time to be a Texas fan for that reason as well.
No doubt, man. Gage, what were your Mississippi State thoughts? Obviously, the defense, a couple of drives probably went a little longer than they should have for Mississippi State. Couldn't get off the field there, but overall, what do you have, Gage?
Well, I think the same thing. I think Arch had like a 140 QBR or something like that. Our Arch was really good. He only had like 5 incompletions, a couple touchdowns. He looked a lot better. His decision making was a lot better. Everything was a lot better. Unfortunately, the fumbles by Jaden Blue kind of kept the game a little bit closer than we wanted it to be, but I still felt pretty comfortable purely because of defense. I think the defense in that game also was like, even though we kind of came in like, okay, Mississippi State's down a couple quarterbacks, like we feel pretty comfortable about our defense. Like, I mean, you saw what Mississippi State passing wise did to Georgia just a week ago. They kind of tore that secondary up. That's over 300 yards passing. I don't even think they had 300 yards total against Texas. So yeah, I think that again, going back to the secondary and stuff, like they just did a really good job, and they kept it a lot easier for the offense and the play calling to not have to stress out about Arch making plays. But yeah, I was impressed with the Mississippi State game. It should have been worse. Unfortunately, the blue fumbles kind of held the offense back a little bit, and we've seen it before, those kind of situations with running back fumbles. So, but yeah.
Good evening, Burn Orange Horn. You guys are funny in the comments.
Comment section's live right now, bro.
I love it, guys. It's been fire in here. That throw that you guys referenced to DeAndre Moore, the ball placement, with considering the duress he was under, I mean it literally there's not a better throw out there. That is 10 out of 10, next level stuff. Yeah, it was fun to watch Arch. Just a weird first half. The 2 turnovers that John, we could have felt like we could have scored 35, walked out of there with 14, and it took a touchdown, inside the last minute to get there. But you take a win. You mostly stayed healthy in that game. Obviously didn't have to stress too hard in the second half getting ready for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's down, right? Oklahoma's pretty down. I think what happened had a good bit to do with Texas being good, but you have to also factor in Oklahoma's pretty dang bad. Overall, what were your favorite parts Saturday watching Oklahoma? We talked about it a little bit, but just overall, a couple things that stood out to you the most.
Man, my favorite play was running a trick play up 24 points in the fourth quarter.
With the gloves.
That is something Bob Stoops would have done to Texas.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was going to say.
That is some chapped ass from last year type stuff. That's like, I didn't forget about that, buddy. I didn't forget about those stupid T-shirts you made. Like, I didn't forget. You know what I mean?
You know what I think it is a little bit towards? You remember when it's 27-27 and we're driving there to go win the game and we're rolling. They cannot stop us. We're picking up chunks. And whatever the 1st and 10 play was from about the 30-yard line, 30 to 35-yard line, whatever, somewhere in there, we're getting up to hurry up tempo to run a first down play. And very, very late, a Sooner defender drops to the ground. Oklahoma ends up creating a negative play on first down, sets us behind the chains, and that whole series has changed. And we end up settling for 3. So I like to think, hey, Sark is petty like I am. It's exactly what Bob Stoops would have done to Texas. You are damn right when you say that. He used to beat our butts, line up in front of the scoreboard, and take a big team picture. And hey, that's just what Sark just did to those guys. It feels pretty dang good, man. And I was sitting in section 13, the Cotton Bowl, so that was literally right in front of me. I was like, we're throwing the ball. I was telling Nash, I was like, we're throwing the ball up 24, 27, whatever. Dude, 10 out of 10. Favorite part.
I wonder who told him to take, did he take the gloves off? Did they plan for him to take the gloves off? Because him taking the gloves off, I started thinking about it more, and I was like, he was so bold. He was like, I'm going to take my gloves off. Then I'm going to come in motion. Then I'm going to get this pass and throw it. It was so obvious. And they just, I guess they kind of
with 4 minutes left.
Well, yeah, they kind of defended it well, but it was like, I don't know, it was awesome. I enjoyed it. I was in agreement. The guy in front of me at the Cotton Bowl, he wasn't a big fan of going for it on the 4th downs or doing the trick play, and he's like, oh, just run the clock out, and I was like, no, I don't like this team, man. I don't like them. I want to beat them by as much as possible. So yeah, I thought it was awesome. I think the gloves off thing, I thought, like I said, that got me riled up a little bit because I was just like, that's just bold for him to, take the glove. It's a pretty cool moment. So I enjoyed it.
My other thought is Gunnar Helm is a dog, dude.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I think he might be, scratch that. That's the best tight end in the country in college football.
Yeah, I agree.
He's the best tight end in the country. And I'll die on that hill. The
growth for Gunnar it's not like he wasn't talented. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. We knew he was good, but the growth from his freshman year to now has been you're talking about a guy that's in the way he represents Texas and the way he represents himself, just all around, just such a great person. And I love that dude, man. I'm so happy he finally got his chance. When they took Nyblack in the transfer portal, I was like, maybe they don't believe in Gunnar Helm. This is, but because I was a Gunnar Helm guy, I was like, I thought he played good last year. And then, but obviously it was always a Gunnar Helm season. So I'm super impressed with him.
The way he high-pointed – oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go.
The way he high-pointed that ball in that trick play, to get up there and snag that, and did you see what he did after? He went right in the OU defender's face and threw the first down, right in his grill.
Yes.
That's what I need out of this team, dude. I need intensity in this rivalry. If you remember a few years ago, I think Carrington Bendham reached down to help up an OU player. I forget which OU player, and the OU player slapped his hand away. And it's that's the mentality you have to have in this game. Yeah. That's what I felt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oklahoma used to play with such an attitude under Stoops, particularly in the 2000s. They showed up. They genuinely hated Texas, and Texas didn't seem to return the favor on the other side a lot of times under Mac Brown. But, watching Gunnar get up there and, do one of these and talk a little noise and make the first down gesture. And I was going to say my favorite thing about Gunnar, other than he's a pretty dang good representative of the university and the football program, but he came out of the Michigan tunnel talking noise. He was talking noise to the Maize and Blue. He was talking noise when he came out of the tunnel the other day to Oklahoma fans. Maybe it's not directly towards anybody, but he's relishing that moment where he's getting booed, and he knows that everybody right there just wants to see him fail, see him and the boys fail. And so that was so cool to watch Gunnar. He's so fired up. Got to chill with the hurdles, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's making me nervous, dude.
UTSA was cool, man. That was awesome. It was a sick hurdle. That was literally the cover for the show. But no more. We've seen that you can do it. Okay, I was really nervous when he was, upside down and still 5 feet in the air against Oklahoma. It's kind of sketchy, man. But
yeah,
he's got a little Brock Cunningham to him too.
Yes,
there you go. Yeah,
I would say
said on that.
My other 2 favorite moments were obviously the Silas Bolden one, which from where I was sitting, I saw it, but I didn't know at that time. We had freaking no connection at all, so I'm not seeing any replays or anything inside the stadium, and so I didn't know where he actually came from. So I didn't actually see when I saw the replay, I was like, oh my gosh, he was in the backfield blocking. That's nuts, man. And I know people have been saying that the entire week, so I won't harp on it too much, but that's that's exactly what this Texas team brings, and that was pretty cool. But then again, the and we talked about this a little bit, the stop at the end of the game, man. I mean, that was about as loud as it was the entire time. Like nobody in Burnt Orange wanted them to score, and the defense felt it too. And I don't know. I won't say none of the starters were in the game, but I don't think any of the starters were in the game at that point. And to see them like get that stop and the starters run on the field and all of our star defensive players run on the field and just give the props to the younger guys for getting that stop, because everybody on that sideline knew how much it meant to not let them score a touchdown. Everybody on that field knew how much it meant, and the stadium erupted. Like even in a 34-3 game, like we had this still kind of an exciting finish. That was cool, man. That's something I will never forget. Watching, a lot of our starters, a lot of our stars on defense run out to congratulate, like pumped up with the younger guys on defense after that stop, and yeah, that was a cool moment too.
No doubt, man. Keeping those guys out of the end zone. I mean, I was literally to the point where I was like, it takes away like 60% of my joy for if we let them in the end zone, because they don't deserve to be in the end zone here.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to. So like, it meant a lot, obviously, to get those guys and keep those guys out of the end zone. We got not a ton of time left for Keenan, so we're going to go through these next part pretty good. Just in a few short words, guys, give me maybe your two most impressive position groups. Can be both on offense, both on defense. Mix it up, whatever you want to do.
I think I'll go you one further. I'll give you my team MVP right now on defense, because I think the team MVP right now is Anthony Hill.
Yes,
I think Anthony Hill, the intensity he brings on every possession, the speed is crazy for a man that size. I don't understand how he moves as quickly as he does. He is the heart and soul of this entire team. Hilarious in interviews. I don't know if you guys ever catch those little interviews, but the dude is just a riot. He's so funny, so much personality, but he backs up everything on the field, man. That was one of the greatest performances against OU I've ever seen from a defensive player. He had 11 tackles, 7 solo, 2 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, something like that. I mean, it was reminiscent of the Joseph Osai performance against Oklahoma State a few years ago. Like, one-man wrecking crew. The guy was all over the field. He was on run stops. He was sacking the quarterback. They were blitzing him. He was in coverage. He did everything that you could ask a middle linebacker to do in that game. He was phenomenal. And I think this team moving him to middle linebacker is like the smartest thing they could have done, because he has been a revelation at that position. And just, he's my favorite player to watch on the whole team. Him and Colin Simmons are my two favorite guys to watch.
Yeah.
And you talk about last week when they line up Anthony Hill coming off one edge and then Colin Simmons on the other. And there's sometimes where Colin Simmons loops to the inside. Sometimes Anthony loops. One of the two would drop. Just knowing that those two guys are out there, no, man, that's going to give a lot of offensive coordinators a lot of sleepless hours and nights. That's nasty, brother. That we haven't had something like this in a very, very long time, if ever, where you're talking about those two type of cats coming off the edge. But yeah, shout out to Anthony, dude. Obviously the clear leader. Every week he does something different. Forced a fumble last week. Obviously talked about double-digit tackles. Covers well. Runs well. Had a sloppy game there against Mississippi State a little bit. Seems like he took accountability. The very next game he played, dominates Oklahoma. So love to see it. That's a great team MVP choice, sir. What about you, Gage?
And DFW boys. They're both DFW guys. So
yeah,
this is true.
I'm actually kind of like, I wanted to, obviously Ant was probably the number one pick that came to my mind as well, because he's just been amazing. But I think the one that came to my mind, position group and player, is Vernon Broughton. And I know you talked to his mom earlier, but he's just been on my mind so much, like, because we were a little bit stressed out. I think everybody was a little bit stressed out about defensive tackle, and he's really calmed a lot of people's nerves, including mine, at that position. And he's been amazing, and he's great. And there's some other guys that have plugged in right there and been really good as well. I think it does help when you have guys like Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill that you have to worry about, but he's just been amazing, man. Like it's been so refreshing to see Broughton do what he's been doing. And I know you talked to his mom a little bit earlier and talked about like maybe him wanting to leave. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad he didn't because we need him now. And
thank you, Mama B.
yeah, for real. She was like, no, you're going to stay in Texas. And so, yeah, he's been made because that was one of our biggest stresses coming into the season. Like, how are we going to replace those two dudes? And
you don't.
Yeah, you
You're
don't.
not going to.
But man, Vernon Broughton's I don't think you could have asked for much better than him. Like he's just been great. So that was a huge help. And then, yeah, I think that's my guy. I think that's the guy I'm going to go with. Offensively, I've just been really impressed with the wide receivers and the speed on the wide receivers, and then also the depth of the running back. Like we've been able to kind of like if like injury and then the blue fumble problems, and you still got Trey Wisner coming in now and stepping up, and that's been huge too. The depth at running back. So
also, offensive line is
the offensive line is just like
the offensive line is nasty.
Squad.
Kelvin Banks might be the most important guy on the team.
Yeah, offensive line. This might be the best offensive line ever. I mean, they're freaking good, dude. Like it's crazy, and we'll see. We'll see this weekend. Like now, you're stiffing up the competition a little bit, but man, just that Oklahoma's a good defense, man, and they didn't do much on that offensive line. So there was a couple of pressures early on in the game, but yeah, I was really impressed with the offensive line.
You talk about the offensive line. You talk about Gunnar Helm. Gunnar Helm will play on Sundays. Would we have said that in 2021 when he was inserted into the starting lineup as a true freshman against Arkansas, and we just got whipped around physically for 3 hours by the old Hogs? You know, Jake Majors. Jake Majors was undersized coming into considering he also had to play as a freshman, had to play as a true sophomore, didn't get a redshirt year. Like he was a little bit undersized. And I mean, that guy has been dang good, dang good, man. Like he's going to play on the NFL on Sundays. Obviously big Cam, Hayden Connor, Kelvin Banks, like everybody is just balling, man. And it's we just haven't had it in so long. A dominant offensive line. We can run the ball. We can throw the ball. We can always depend on these guys. Yeah, we're good for a few false start penalties, and yeah, you got to check Big Cam every now and then, make sure that we're not drawing a free 15 for the bad guys. But I love the energy, the passion. These guys are all about it, man. Quinn gets touched up kind of late in Michigan, on that one play right after the whistle. They were ready to throw down,
That's what I love too. There's so much feistiness, man.
Yeah. It was the same in the Oklahoma game when like everybody kind of felt like Quinn got hit a little late there and they didn't throw a flag, and it's like then the flags do come out later on, and it's like, well, what did you expect, man? If you're not going to protect our quarterback like our offensive line is, and they were all five right there ready to go. So yeah, it's good to see that kind of stuff. So
last guy I'll shout out before I head out because I got to head out in a couple minutes, but Ryan Wingo, dude.
Yeah.
Ryan freaking Wingo. So this wide receiver class this season, if you look at like top 24/7, elite wide receiver crop this year, the 24 class. Ryan Williams at Alabama, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, Cam Coleman at Auburn. Ryan Wingo's right in there with those guys.
Yeah.
Ryan Wingo is a freaking stud. He's going to be a top 15 pick in a couple of years at wide receiver. The guy is a nightmare to cover. He's so fast. He's big, but he's not too big to run end rounds. He adjusts well to the ball in the air. He's just a lightning rod. He's so important to this wide receiving core. And I think he has the most potential out of all these receivers. And they're saying Isaiah Bond's going to be a first rounder. I still think Wingo might have the most potential out of all of those guys. That's like really saying something.
Yeah, Wingo is generational talent. I don't know what they're feeding those boys in St. Louis, but we need to build a straight airline flight to whatever because they keep going to get them boys. He's huge, man. Like when we talked about the UTS game, like the first time I saw him, I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's at the Colorado State game." Sorry, I was like, "That's Wingo." I was like, "He's huge, man." Like, I was like, we were standing right there. I was like, dude, there's no way he's that big. I was in shock at how big he was.
Yeah.
And obviously I've seen Simmons live before, so I kind of knew how big he was, but Wingo, I was like, man, I was in shock at how big Wingo is.
And obviously all the fans love Ryan, like he's taking everybody by storm kind of. And you can tell how much Sark trusts the guy. Like you look up in the Oklahoma game and we're down 3-0, after a quarter, and we got the ball around midfield on our first touchdown drive. I mean, Wingo's out there almost every snap there on that series. And it was like, all right, man, like this is what we want to see. Like we've got a wide receiver depth. We've got running back depth. Our offensive line, it's just like it's hard to nitpick this program right now. That you would have very, very few options if you were to do so. But if there is one thing, quick, Keenan, before you get out of here, last question I'll have for you. Anything that concerns you about Texas at the moment going forward?
Man, I was a little concerned about the inside run on defense, but they stifled Oklahoma's run game. Not that Oklahoma was able to run the ball this year because they haven't been able to at all. Javonte Barnes, I think, was their top running back, and he had under 200 yards in 5 games, something like that. Like, they can't run the ball. But Mississippi State was getting a few 7-yarders, 6-yarders here and there. This is going to be a real test against Georgia because Etienne's a hell of a back. Georgia's down Tate Ratledge, though, and that's an all-American guard. That is a dude who will be playing in the NFL, next year or whenever he goes. So that was a concern, but man, I was looking at this Georgia roster compared to Texas, and like the point I came up with, we talked to Jordan Hill on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Shouts out Texas Sports Unfiltered, my outlet.
Hey, plug it.
Yeah, plug it. We talked to Jordan Hill at 24/7 Sports. He's a Georgia writer. And we asked him about the wide receiver group, and how he said they've had big games, but they've been inconsistent. And I think that the Texas defensive backfield matches up very well against their receiving core. Carson Beck's a hell of a quarterback, don't get me wrong, but like I'm having trouble finding where Georgia's significantly better than Texas in any area. I really am. And I'm not saying Texas can't lose this game because they totally could. Carson Beck could go nuts, throw 400 yards. We haven't seen an offense like this, but this is not the Georgia of 2022. You know what I mean? Like this is a Georgia team that's already lost a game. They're going to come in hungry, but that's got to be in the back of your mind that you gave up 41 to Alabama. And like this Texas offense is comparable. It is. They don't have Jalen Milroe running the show. They don't have a running quarterback, but they got so many weapons at receiver. They have their own. We got Ryan Williams at home. They have Ryan Wingo. You know what I mean? They have their own receiving core that's going to be really tough to stop. And I'm so impressed with this program. I'm thoroughly impressed with every position group has been good. The only concern I have is just not getting behind the chains with penalties and Ewers having a rusty start against Georgia. Other than that, man, I'm feeling very confident about Saturday.
I say the same thing, man. First downs with Texas. If we're winning first downs on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, it's so much more difficult for the other teams. Look at that first quarter where Oklahoma got us behind the chains early. Those first few series, we struggled. But once Texas started winning a little bit on first downs, even just picking up 3 or 4, you keep your entire playbook open for second down. And then defensively, if you get behind the chains and you get in the obvious pass position, you have in a pass down against our pass rush and our secondary, and obviously we haven't really been tested with a quarterback so far in the young season. But yeah, man, like good luck if you don't get behind the chains here. First downs on Saturday, or just winning first downs on Saturday with Texas and Georgia is going to be huge, and I think we'll see a ton of screens out of Texas and Georgia. Kind of an effort to do so. Yeah, they have a really good little screen system as well, but. All right, Keenan, we're going to get you out of here, man. Gage, we just might go for like 2 more minutes if that's okay. But thanks for being here, Keenan.
Dude, thank you, man. I love coming on this show. It's so much fun every time. Your commentaries are fun. Gage, good to meet you. I don't know if we've met before, but good to talk to you, brother. That was a lot of fun. And the Ghost, I'll be back on soon, brother. I will.
See you Saturday.
And,
Saturday.
I'll be at the game on Saturday. Shoot me a text. Maybe we can link at a tailgate or something.
Yes, sir. Have a good evening, my man.
Peace out, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Later, brother. Yes, sir. All right, Gage. Just going forward real quick. I got you. There you go. All right, Gage. Just one more topic I want to talk with you about real quick, but just second half thoughts here. Obviously the schedule becomes a lot more difficult for Texas. Talking about Georgia, road trip to Vanderbilt, the bye week, and then it becomes the last 4, which are kind of tricky there. You got Florida, at Arkansas, Kentucky, and at Texas A&M. So overall, what are your thoughts going to the back half? Do you expect this team to fall down at any point in this back half of the schedule?
This is such a tough question because I think there is still some scars to be healed, and I think that's kind of the motto towards the back half of this season for this program and for us as fans is full healing, is to fully heal from what we've been through over the past 15 years. And I think it starts on Saturday. I think my biggest concern with the football team as a whole is, even though the running backs have been fine, is still running back depth, and running back fumble problems. Even though that we had that great play by Bolden, you still had the fumble by Trey Wisner, which you don't really want to see because we've already kind of been having the problems with Blue. And so running the ball does make me a little nervous because it is a key on staying ahead on first downs, like we were just talking about. But I also believe in Sark to find ways to kind of stretch the defense side to side and open it up a little bit to where the running game will be a little bit easier. And also, we've got an offensive line that's so dang good. You might be able to throw anybody back there and let them run the ball. So, yeah. But I think the motto for, like I said, the back half of the season is full healing. Like, let's fully heal and let's keep this train rolling. This team is really good, man. I don't think I was as confident going into the season as a lot of people were. I think even going into this Georgia game, like, I think about what we were talking about at the beginning of the season, that like Georgia was the better team and that we weren't sure what Texas was really going to look like, and we were losing this and losing that. And I'm going into this Georgia game and I get the whole point of, like, yeah, we haven't played the greatest competition, but we've handled our business. And the defense is the best in the country. It's the best defense in the country, and they might have not seen the best offenses in the country yet, but they practice against one of the best offenses in the country every single day. And so they know what it's like. And I think that once this game intensity pops up, and that they're going to get rolling on Saturday night. And I really think that this is our time to really get on this stage and show out. And I think this team's ready to do it. I think they're super hungry, man. Like I keep saying, with our standards, the standard, right? Like, and I think that even going into this Georgia game, it doesn't matter if you're playing Mississippi State, it doesn't matter if you're playing Georgia or if you're playing Vanderbilt. The standard's the standard, like, and it's our standard, and we're playing against ourselves. And I think that's super important, and it's going to help us down the stretch. Yeah, I'm obviously, like, at the beginning of the year, this back half of the schedule was the easiest SEC schedule of all time, but that's college football for you. Now all of a sudden, it's looking like one of the tougher side of SEC schedules, where we have to go play at Arkansas, who's looking pretty good, where we have to go, play Florida, who hasn't. They've had a lot of slip ups, but they don't look half bad. You got to go play A&M, who, after they beat Missouri, they're the best college football team to ever step foot on the field, according to their guys. So, yeah, and then obviously you got this big game against Georgia. So, the schedule looks a little daunting, but I really do believe in this team, and I believe in what we built, and I can't wait for Saturday night, man, because we get to show not only off our football team, but we get to show off the environment that CDC's built and this young, fired up, hungry fan base that we've got. And it's going to be, Saturday night's going to be a movie, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's going to be fun. Like, yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. I definitely want to believe. Georgia's not going to go in there and roll over. Still a ton of talent. But yeah, looking at it now, Texas feels like Texas should win this football game. Before the season, I had Texas 11-1. Only loss was this game with Georgia. But I'm not afraid of you anymore. It's like, what is that? Yeah. Home Alone, yelling at the furnace. Like, just they don't seem so big and bad, And I could very much eat those words, but it's just the Georgia, the physicality, the punishing run game, the Brock Bowers, like, none of that seems to be there at the moment. They're not crushing it running the ball. They're having to rely on Carson Beck's arm because of offensive line and inexperience and injuries. And then defensively, man, like, they've let teams take the top off of them a little bit. They're very susceptible to the big play at the moment. Go look at that yards per catch average for a couple of the Mississippi State wide receivers. just didn't expect Mississippi State to put up the 31 spot on Georgia, but at the same time, it kind of seems like Kirby was tinkering around a little bit in the second half, kind of testing some guys out, putting guys on islands.
It's a lot of tinkering, 300 yards, 300 passing yards.
Right. Right. Which, I mean, a lot of it did come in the second half, but I mean, he didn't do that on us. He could complete an occasional slant pass against us. I think he maybe completed one like skinny post or a hitch route, that old veer and shoot mess. But it's hard not to like Texas, man. It really, really is. Every parent that I've talked to this week, dude, the kids are like laser focused on Georgia. That doesn't mean that this guarantees victory or anything of that nature for Texas, but it shows where the mindset. It shows where the mindset is at. You just won the golden hat back from your hated rival. You dusted them. You beat them for 4 quarters or mostly 3 quarters. And, like a lot of times in the past, it seems like Texas wins that game. I'm not saying we treat it as a Super Bowl, but it seems like we're so up, like 2 up for a regular season win. And I'll say this, it kind of feels like Texas treated Oklahoma as just a stepping stone to greater goals this season, they won that game. They've moved on, and it feels good to say that, treat those guys as a stepping stone. And nothing feels better than winning that game. But hey, they're just part of a mission right now. And all these kids, the parents, families, coaches, they're dialed in, man. It's a mission. It really, really is. And so guys, hey, do me a favor, go like this video for Gage, for Keenan, for the channel. Y'all show some love. Got daily content coming. We'll have the Texas pregame show, Texas Georgia pregame show tomorrow at 1:30. Have a couple more predictions for you. I believe we'll have Peyton, Nash, and Joseph here for that. Gage is working. For you guys that are going to the game, to please be reminded that F1 is in town. The orange-white baseball scrimmage is Friday night. There is so many things going on in Austin, so make your travel plans accordingly, which you've already done all your travel plans. But as far as getting up to DKR, get up there. I will not be there until mid-afternoon due to some early morning volleyball, but we will be up there. Love our chances. I cannot wait to see what the campus is like, the stadium is like. The vibes are going to be very, very high. Definitely a good time to be a fan, man. It's almost hard not to just blush right here. It just feels so good, man. We deserve this. We've waited on this. And so there hasn't been a top 5 matchup at DKR since 2006 when Texas lost to number 1 Ohio State. It's the number 2 team in the country. We've had a couple of top 5 teams come in since then. I don't think we've had a top 5 win at DKR since 99 Nebraska. Or did we have one in the 2000s somewhere? Do you know off the top of your head, Gage?
What was Missouri ranked in 09?
In 08, we played Missouri. They were number 2 the week before, and they lost at home to top 10 right. Oklahoma State, dropped them to number 11. Oklahoma State was number 7. They came to Austin the very next week after Missouri. So beating number 7 Missouri, I might be missing one, but guys, my knowledge on this stuff is normally pretty spot on. I have a weird memory with Texas football, but I think 99 Nebraska, that might be our last top 5 win. I'll have to look further into that, but good times, brother. Gage and I will be there together. So very exciting stuff. Thank you all for watching. See you tomorrow for the pregame show, guys. Hook 'em horns, and you guys have a good